Hello, everyone. Welcome to the VarsityWA Midweek Podcast. I am Todd Milles, your host, and it is the postseason in Washington High School football, Week 10, the state play-in round. We'll start the show by bringing on Hershel Dennis, the head football coach at Life Christian Academy and the all-time winningest player in NCAA history while at USC, to talk about his journey to Tacoma, Washington. And then we'll bring in the championship coach, Eric Kurle, for his Coach's Corner, X's and O's breakdown of a couple games, including the 4A game on the Plateau with Meade visiting Eastlake. And then finally, we'll have Matt Evans from Evans Rankings to also talk about some of the hot matchups from Week 10. Please stick around. Welcome to the first segment of the VarsityWA Midweek Podcast. I am Todd Milles, your host, and joining us as our special weekly guest is none other than Life Christian Academy football coach Hershel Dennis. If you're a college football fan from 2 or 3 decades ago, you might remember that name. He was at USC for a long time and was one of the top recruits in the country coming out of Long Beach Poly. I guess we'll just start there, Hershel. I mean, it's been almost 25 years.
Man, that's crazy to hear that number.
25 years since you were setting records in one of the most storied programs in California. I'm curious to hear some of your opinions now, 25 years later. How much do you think the high school landscape has changed since you were playing?
I mean, it's changed. I mean, out in California, I think it's changed in the fact of just where the powerhouses are at now. The game has evolved a lot. I mean, there's just so many. I remember I was just talking to my cousin about this. Like, there would be, Long Beach Poly or, one other school in the city would be like full of Samoans and be the dominant team, and while everybody else would be kind of a mix. And now you look at, there's so many powerhouses all over the West Coast. And I think it's changed in that fact of just like how many good teams there are. The game, these kids nowadays, they grow up a little different from the way that we grew up. So it changed in terms of the way how these high school kids deal with pain, and it not being their way out. So there's just so many little things that just cause the game to change, and how these kids process and how they persevere and work through stuff. I don't think the game has changed as much. I think it's evolved a little bit with the RPO, but just the way these youngsters are kind of, how they're coming up is what's kind of changing the game a little bit.
I remember when you first got the job, we had a sit-down interview. I was working for a different company, but just your journey after USC. And for people that don't know, the all-time winningest player in NCAA Division I history, obviously suffered through some serious knee injuries. You tried to keep the playing stuff going. You even went the rugby route a little bit. You jumped into coaching. Would you just sort of share with our listeners a few of the stops that you did coaching in California before you found your way up to Washington, where you were assistant coach and Snoop Dogg's league and stuff like that? Some of the interesting stops that you had before.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think right as soon as I got done, Snoop Dogg is actually the first, his organization and his team that his son played on when he was 13, Cordell. That was the first coaching job that I ever got. It was to be the running back and offensive coordinator for his team, for that 13U team back in the day. And that was me trying to find something to stay significant after dealing with not being picked up or not being signed. It was a hard time, and it was a really difficult time to deal with once you played football for so long, and then you're always being picked. And then when it's kind of over, or you're waiting to go to the highest level and now you're not getting picked, that was a struggle to deal with. And so, I respect Snoop a lot, man, for just giving me an outlet to kind of deal with that and everything that I was going through. Then after that, I got into training. Uh, I started my own training company, and I think I was like one of the first people in California to take like D1 college training to high schools. And some of my first clients was J. Sarah, Santa Margarita, and Tesoro High School. And then I would do some stuff for free for like Long Beach Poly and some of the Long Beach schools. But I ventured off in that. Then I went to South Dakota to play arena ball. And when I was 27, I think 2011, played 1 year there, won a championship with that team, the Sioux Falls Storm. And after 1 year of arena ball, because I was 2 years out after college, I was like, oh I'm done. It was like I could barely walk to the bathroom after a night of practice. And so after 2011, winning that championship, retired and just stayed out in the Midwest for about 7 years. And then when my mother got sick, that's when I moved back to California to take care of her. And that's when I got involved in coaching. First coach running, not first coaching job, but first college coaching job at Southwest Junior College. Was the running back coach there for about half the season. Had a terrible accident with my son, with my youngest boy, and that I had to stop coaching and take care of him from the accident. And then got back involved in coaching at St. Bernard's High School during the COVID year. I was coaching running backs there. And then after that season, I think it was like going into 2021. I didn't coach after that. That program got shut down after COVID, and I was just working construction. And after my mom's passed in 21, June 21, 6 months, like going into December 21, it was time for a change of environment. And that's when I moved out to Washington. My cousin was out here starting up Gridiron in Tacoma, Washington. And so came out here, started with him. And I think the biggest thing was just finding a high school that was aligned with what we were doing with kids in the off season in terms of our faith. And when my son came to live with me in 2022, came and stayed with me. And when he was in the 8th grade, the first school that I toured was LCA, and everything that they were talking about and was aligned with the work that we were trying to do at Gridiron, which is, help student athletes not allow the sport to identify them and grow their relationship closer with Christ. And um, when I took the tour to LCA, and I remember asking the head of school at the time, Gus, like, hey man, you got a football program? He said, yeah, we got a football program. We just don't have any coaches and we don't have much of a team right now. And I said, perfect. That sounds great for my first head coaching job. And so I applied, man, and was blessed enough to get the job. I mean, I probably had to fight off a few candidates. That was a great situation to walk into. But what was so funny about that process, right? And after I got the job, they were all they kept talking and harping about was like, oh man, is Hershel Dennis most winningest, won this, won that. All you could hear is my name and winning. And then we go into that first year and we lose every single game. And but I think it was that first year how they seen me handle those losses and how I, poured into those kids and spoke life into them during those times is what helped me gain the respect of the community at LCA and allowed us to be kind of where we're at now.
When you look back, right? I mean, you're in your fourth season.
Yeah.
Time has really flown here. Right? When you look back of what you came to and how to build this and what you've built this program to a perennial state playoff team, a team that I know you expect to go very far.
Yeah.
Starting this weekend, hosting Zillow in the state play-in round, and maybe a few more weeks. Um, what are some of your thoughts about just the 4 years and how they've gone and what's gone into building this program here at Life Christian?
Man, it just shows me that God is real. It shows me that God is real, man. Man, I couldn't have done any of this without, him blessing me with the vision and being able to kind of make it through a season like that and still be optimistic and have the energy that was contagious to be able to attract families that never even thought about coming to LCA, that it sparked some interest. So it just, I mean, everything that kind of the point where it's at now and how it's a household name now in the 1A, and the success that we've been having, man, it's literally all God and him, having his hand over this program and blessing me with the vision and the answers and the wisdom and the patience, like everything that I need to kind of get through it, because it's rough. It was rough, especially learning on the fly, it being my first head coaching job and stepping right into a head coaching role and having to build a staff and having to encourage players that never played the game before and keeping them motivated. Like, to be where we're at now is like, it's amazing, man. It's a true blessing. And I try to encourage, everybody that's new that comes into the program, or that's, dealing with, we had a rough start of the season and everybody else was kind of bummed, but I was excited. I loved the adversity that we were dealing with. I loved that we were being challenged early on, because I knew what it was going to prepare us for, and how we were going to be ready when we had to get in dog fights. And so I'm just, man, well, I'm blessed that God has paved the way, that He's been putting the right leaders around me to help mentor me through this whole experience, that He's been providing me with a lot of great leaders to join the coaching staff. He's also got rid of some, and some has moved on to college, and some that weren't, the best fit for what we're trying to do in terms of just aligned with our faith and everything, and football. So, I mean, it's for it to happen so quickly, and we go from 1 year 0-7, second year 7-3, third year 9-2, and then a challenging fourth year where everything was supposed to, we supposed to just like be blowing everybody out, but then I lose 7 key players. Well, before, making that tough schedule that I made, that was a different team that I had in mind coming into the season. And in one off season, I mean, I just dealt with the most challenges that I ever dealt with injuries, transfers, um, uh, academic stuff. Just like, this past off season was, I think, everything that a normal program deals with on a regular basis, but because our program was so small, it just hit harder. And so, but it grew me. It grew me. It grew my staff. It grew the players. Going into week 1, playing Ording and only having 15 eligible players. And then going into Nooksack and losing your star quarterback and one of your star linemen, and then going into the Yelm game with just 12 players eligible. Like, a lot of people wanted me to, we should cancel, or I'm like, no, that's not what we showing these boys. Like, that's not even in my character and my cloth. So we're gonna fight through it, and we're gonna see where these 12 are at. And we battled well. And I was I knew once we were able to get kids eligible and get kids back from injuries, that we're going to be strong moving forward.
If you want to support the Life Christian Academy Eagles and Coach Dennis's program, they are in action Saturday afternoon in a state play-in game against Zilla at Harry E. Lang Stadium. He's got one of the most dynamic and exciting players in the classification in quarterback Jabez Boyd. This is a team that's peaking at the right time, getting healthy at the right time. Coach Hershel Dennis, thanks for joining the podcast and talking a little bit about your journey and what you built here in 4 years, and best of luck staying healthy and your progress and what happens here over the next few weeks.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you for your time, man.
Welcome back to the second segment of the VarsityWA midweek podcast. joined by the championship coach for his X's and O's Coach's Corner segment, Mr. Eric Kurle. Let's get into a couple games that you've had a chance to look to study. Meade of the GSL coming to Eastlake, a really interesting tie in this game, Eric. Kyle Snell used to coach at Eastlake as a longtime offensive coordinator and was there a couple years as the head coach before he moved back to Spokane. Now he gets to bring Meade back to the plateau. Very interesting game on paper. What'd you see on tape that really kind of caught your eye with these two teams?
Well, it's a tough one. Both of them, I think Eastlake's 4-5 and Meade 6-3. But Meade, a lot of their games and their big games against Gonzaga, Mount Spokane, and Cheney, they're playing, move the ball. They just turned the ball over at times and got themselves in troubles. Meade does a great job of doing a bunch of stuff on offense with some double tight end, some tight end, running some option with their quarterback, gap power, and some fly stuff. They screen out of it. They do different things. East Lake's, a 4-4 team, and they're cover three, cover one. They're going to have to get down there. What are they going to do against that double tight end? That's what's a hard thing for 4-4 teams because you're going to leave gaps open, and you got to slide down to a six, or you're going to have to bring those outside linebackers and make them the leverage players right away, and then you're going to leave up for a pass play because. What I think this game's going to come down to East Lake, what they do really, really well, because Coach here, Greg, went to Eastern. They run the zone really well. And that's what, he grew up in college. Then they do some play action bootlegs off that. That running back number 20 really runs the zone really well for East Lake. What I think is going to come down to in this game, I don't think it's going to be a high scoring game. I think what's going to happen is whoever can throw the ball, whoever can takes a shot and make a play, because both these teams are going to load the box, I think, to stop the run, and you're going to have to be able to get up top on one of the teams and get a big play.
I'm curious, with Kyle Snell coming back to the school that he used to coach, can that be a possible distraction? How do you, as a coach, how do you block out some of that stuff, especially when he's not that far removed from coaching up there?
I really don't think it'll affect him because I don't think anybody's left really there coaching. They've had some turnover coaching there since him. But it could. I don't know exact Kyle that well, how involved he was in that youth programs and things like that. But I think he's got to feel like he's got a chance to upset. They're the higher seed game, or it's a pretty good setup for him in this game.
Coach Kurle, at the end of this one, what will the scoreboard say?
I'm going to go with Meade. I think they're just a little better on defense. They do a better job on defense. I think they really put a good job of bringing things down on there when they're going to blitz. They don't show it too early. When they're in there too, they stay in there too high, and then they roll down into. If they're going to bring one, they bring down one guy. They'll bring down two, both safeties down, and go some zero and bring some two. But they show it late, and that's going to be harder for the Eastlake quarterback to see, and they do a good job of that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Meade's a little better defensively, a little healthier defensively. Kyle Snell gets a win in his return to Sammamish and moves on to the state playoffs starting next week. The second game that Coach Kurle will take a look at is in the 3A ranks. It's Cedro Woolley, the 3A Wesco champion, coached by longtime coach Dave Ward, been around for decades. He's won state championships at Oak Harbor and at Cedro Woolley. Hosting Gig Harbor, Jeff Skoma in his first season with the Tides. Was at Stanwood for a while, was a longtime coach in the Bellevue youth program under Butch Goncharoff. Done a nice job. Both of them are running the wing T, both very familiar with each other scheme-wise. And obviously Jeff Skoma, being in the Wesco with Stanwood for 4+ seasons, very familiar with Dave Ward and what Cedro Woolley is about. Looking at these two teams on tape, Eric, what intrigued you about this particular matchup?
Well, like you said, they're both wing T, but totally kind of different wing Ts. Cedar Woolley's more of a zone, dive backs, fake running backs, give the ball a sweep around the edge. Where Gig Harbor is more of the typical wing T, where they're buck sweeping, moving bringing both guards. They're down blocking. They're kicking out, that type of thing. I think Cideroli can throw the ball a little better. And they have some number 13, their running back Rochester is pretty special. I think he's really does a good job, catches the ball, does different things. They have a big receiver also, Dijong, that can go up and get it. And on defense, I think they're a 3-4, which I think what Gig Harbor is going to do against that 3-4 because of the bubbles they get. Usually in a regular team that's running a wing T, you're just going to slide your line, bring up one of your outside linebackers, put them on the tight end, choke that tight end, and control that. But what they're going to do, Gig Harbor's going to do, is probably do, and they do it a lot, is do a lot of unbalanced sets and bringing a tackle over and a tight end. And they're going to make a bubble there, and that's where they're going to hit with their dive X, their run game inside. And then both teams are going to have the same issue. They're going to bound pound, and then they're going to go around the outside. So the leverage players outside got to keep leverage and not come inside and watch the ball fakes. The ball fakes are key. You don't want your linebackers or your safeties looking at those ball fakes. You got to read your keys, and whoever does that best will win this football game.
Yeah, you mentioned Gig Harbor, very balanced on offense, 4 or 5 running backs with 300 or more yards. The Schwab kid, both a runner and receiver for the Tides. It's interesting, Eric. This is, as you know, this is a white collar community that's been known to throw the football, and you have a coach that comes in and installs the wing T. How do you think that transition's looked in year one with their offense? How smooth do you think that wing T has looked in its first year, in its debut season?
Well, I know Jeff a little bit and heard a lot about him. I think he's been around the wing T for a long time. It probably took a little while to get it going, but I think he's been around how to teach it. I think they've looked pretty clean running it when I'm watching them. They don't run it like as good as Bellevue right now, but they're getting there. They're getting close there, and they don't have the guys that Bellevue has. But like you said, there's 4 guys that have over 350 yards, another guy at 200 and something, and they got different guys that carry the ball, so you can't just take one out. And then Cideroli, same thing. If they can throw the ball a little bit, and Gig Harbor plays a little soft on their defense, off a little bit, and I don't think they're going to be able to do that against Cideroli. So they're going to get up there. So I want to see if Cideroli is going to take a shot over the top or two early in the game.
Eric Kurle, at the end of this one, what will the scoreboard say?
I'm going to go Cideroli. I think they're a little bit more polished everywhere on defense. There, I think they're a better football team on defense.
Yes, I agree. I like Cedro Woolley in this game too. I don't bet against Dave Ward, and at this time of year, what Jeff Scoma's done in year one at Gig Harbor has been remarkable. Getting this team to the playoffs, played Mount Tahoma tough, played some other teams tough, but Cedro Woolley's been around the block a little bit longer. I like Cliff Tadema, the quarterback that you mentioned. He had a nice year as a senior. Is a real calm and collected, influence on this team. I think the Cubs roll at home.
There you go.
Well, that'll do it here for the Coach's Corner with the championship coach, Eric Kurle, in Week 10, the state play-in round. Coach will be back with us on Friday as we look at some of the key matchups from the scoreboard. Coach, thanks a lot. We'll see you on Friday.
Yep.
Thanks for coming back to segment 3. Matt Evans joins us from the Tri-Cities to talk Week 10 state play-in round football. Matt, instead of just kind of going over a few games of the week, let's talk about the 4 classifications that have the state play-in round and maybe the game that you see that has the most upset potential. Let's start in 4A. What do you got? What game says, hey, a lower seed could come up and bite a higher seed in this game?
I'm looking at Kamaic and Bethel as the one that's kind of up there for me. I was out there at Lamson last night to watch the Braves beat Lewis and Clark, and they've got some really interesting defensive schematics they used last night. A lot of post, like just before the snap movement, kind of confusing the offensive line, and it worked. They got like 6 or 7 sacks last night. But they're a team that we had talked about for a while as a top 12, top 13 team, and they're going on the road. I mean, yeah, it's going to be a tough bus trip over to Spanaway there, but I think that if they can get the run game going, if Jagger McEwen can make sure that he limits his mistakes, I think that they've got a really good shot to come out of it and go to the round of 16.
Yeah, this is a team that went to Yelm last year, as you remember, and won in the round of
Yep.
32. So they're no stranger to going and win on the road. The game that I like is a little bit of a sentimental tie. Kyle Snell takes Meade back to his old stomping grounds at East Lake. The thing when you talk to Kyle Snell is he kind of wondered, could this team, if it dug itself a hole, could it come out and play competitive, and make a game of it? And I think we saw that against Gonzaga Prep. I think that was very heartening for this program. We know that they have a physical defense. We know how they look getting off the bus, and Kyle Snell knows what it takes to make long runs in the state playoffs. He did it with Eastlake, getting into the state semifinals. I like this Meade team. I've liked them from the beginning of the year. I know they have had a couple hiccups, especially late in games, but they run the football. They're really physical on defense. And Eastlake has just kind of been hit or miss, and they're 4-5. Yeah, they played a tough schedule, but if you can get to Miles Johnson, the really good scat back, you have a really good chance to win this game. And I really kind of like Meade in this game to win and move on. Let's look at the 3A bracket. Matt, what game kind of catches your eye with some upset potential in 3A?
So I actually think there are going to be 3 upsets. I'll only talk about the number one, but the one that really jumped out at me, I'm looking at Gig Harbor Cedro Woolley, and I'm looking at a Gig Harbor team that I feel like they were underseeded. They feel like they were underseeded, and they're going against a team that plays very similarly to them, but the coaching staff has a read on these guys because Coach came over from Stanwood. He's seen these guys. He knows how to game plan for these guys. That's the game that I'm looking at. And I'm thinking that's probably the highest upset potential for me in 3A.
Well, I'm not going to bet against the 3A Metro League and a team that went on the road last year and beat Lakes in the playoffs. I know it was different personnel. The Seattle Prep going from Mount Lake Terrace, a team that won its first divisional or league championship of any kind in its school history. I know they're really good defensively. I expect this to be a low-scoring game, but Seattle Prep has a long track record of success in winning a game or two in the state playoffs. And I like Seattle Prep going to, I think they're playing that game at Edmond Stadium. I like them. I like the Panthers to get in, and we see 4 Metro teams in the round of 16.
For the record, that was my number 2 pick.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I stole it. So let's go to Class 2A. Of these 16 games, which one's caught your eye with some upset potential here, Matt?
And I'm Aberdeen, West Valley, Spokane. I really like this Aberdeen team. I think that they, like Kamaikan, I have them, the computer has them as a top 12 team. And I think that, they came out, they made a statement last night against Mark Morris, and they've got a long bus ride ahead of them. But I think that the style of play that they have is, if they can control the clock and limit their turnovers, I think Aberdeen's going through the round of 16. And I think that they get, if all favorites win and Aberdeen wins, I think Aberdeen's maybe a 12 or a 13. I don't think that you can just pencil them in as a 16.
What do you think if West Valley Spokane wins? And again, I think you and I both agree this is a matchup of teams that maybe should have been both seated a little higher.
Mm-hmm.
If West Valley Spokane wins at home over Aberdeen, and I like Aberdeen and their ability to run the football, could you see West Valley Spokane moving up in seeding on Sunday when the state committee meets?
Yeah, I don't think that they'd move up too far, though. I think that same, probably 13 be the ceiling for them. Just because what we've seen from this, obviously the round of 32 is not seeded officially, but right now they're slotted at 16, and I could see them jumping a Prosser or a North Kitsap. I'm not sure about Silicum, but I could see them 13-14 if they win.
Okay. And finally, let's go to the 1A bracket. Only 12 games, the round of 24. Royal and Kashmir, the top 2 seeds in that bracket. What game do you see with some upset potential in the 1A bracket, Matt?
I think that In all honesty, I think it's clear. Kingsway Road. No, I'm just kidding. I think Omak and Colville is probably the one. I mean, they've played already once this year. I think that they're, that's it. It's not too big of travel for Omak, and Omak has a really good style that does travel on the road. They do play some really tough defense. Omak, I think Omak's probably the one. But the biggest thing is I really like of these games, like I don't see any other ones that just really jump out at me. I think that the home teams in 1A are probably going to win handily in these games.
Yeah, I actually see it a little differently. I mean, Kings has a win over Nooksack Valley. They're physical enough up front to go to put some pressure on that pass game. I know they have to go up to Bellingham this weekend to try and make it back-to-back wins this season. But they've proven they can beat Nooksack Valley. The one that really intrigues me is the Lakeside of 9 Mile Falls at Rochester game, and I really like Rochester. I like what they're about. They've done a great job building that Howard T offense with those three guys, but they haven't gotten over the hump. And we know that Lakeside and 9 Mile Falls, they have a proven track record with all those 10-win seasons, getting to the state championship game against Royal in the first year. It was at Husky Stadium. I know Lakeside was missing its best lineman in the game against Colville, and they're going to welcome him back this week. I'm not saying that they're going to go beat Rochester. Well, I actually am, because I picked it on our site today, but only on the premonition that they get off to a fast start. Yeah. Because Colville kind of picked them apart in the run game last week, and if it's Rochester that gets up and sort of gets them in that grinder of just running it, that might spell doom for Lakeside. But if Lakeside can get up with, a touchdown or two with those athletes that they have, I kind of like Lakeside. I could see two teams from the 1A Northeast getting to the round of 16, which I think would be really big for that league.
Yeah, it absolutely would be big for that league. They now only having 4 teams with Freeman and Newport dropping down. This is huge for them. This could be a really big statement.
Well, that'll do it for our segment with Matt Evans here in week 10 of the VarsityWA Midweek Podcast. We thank the viewers and our special guests this week, Hershel Dennis, the head football coach at Life Christian Academy, and then on my regular guest, the championship coach, Eric Kurle, and of course, our guy in the Tri-Cities, Matt Evans, for joining us. We will be back Friday night for Midnight Reactions, playoff style. This podcast is brought to you by Varsity Washington, your source for high school sports news, rankings, and more around the state of Washington. You can listen to new episodes of the VarsityWA Podcast weekly on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. And for more from VarsityWA, visit us at varsitywanews.com and subscribe for daily posts covering the high school sports landscape around the state. A special thank you to our guests on this episode and to Carl Johnson and Matt Bueller of the Portland-based band Edith and Axon for providing the music you hear at the beginning and end of this podcast each week. You can find the band on Instagram at Edith Axon Official. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in to the VarsityWA Podcast. For producer Lauren Smith, I'm your host, Todd Milles. We will be back next week.